On this day, 1 year ago, Tactics Ogre Reborn was released unto the world, and a big part of my life changed forever. So today, I want to celebrate the 1 year anniversary of Tactics Ogre Reborn, one of what I consider to be the greatest video games ever made, by talking a little bit about what it did for me, and why I think it's the definitive way to play Tactics Ogre. So let's talk about it. Hello everyone, my name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and if you know me, you know the channel, then there's a very good chance that you do so because of Tactics Ogre Reborn and my coverage of it from the past, well, little over a year. At time of recording, it is currently November 11th, 2023. You're probably seeing this a day later due to, video production, but at time of recording, it is November 11th, which means it is exactly a year to the day since Tor first dropped. That was a big day for me. I didn't realize how important it was going to wind up being in the grand scheme of things, but I still knew that it was going to be an important release. Tactics Ogre is, of course, the spiritual predecessor to my favorite video game of all time, Final Fantasy Tactics, and I love Tactics Ogre in its own right, just as an excellent game with an excellent story, great characters, great gameplay, another Matsuno masterpiece. And so I knew, leading up to the release, that I was going to be covering it on the channel. Some of my most popular videos on the channel were actually my news coverage of the game as we were learning more about it, what system changes there was going to be, the fact that there was going to be full voice acting, a completely redone OST, all that type of good stuff. So I knew that there was interest, and seeing as how the genre is my favorite type of genre, I knew that I could cover it and cover it well. I didn't realize, come November 11th, 2022, just how big of a release it was going to be for me, but I was still gearing up for a lot of good coverage. I had guides that I was already starting to lay out the groundwork of. I was planning a lot of different streams. I had a lot of time blocked out in my schedule to cover it. And then it dropped, and we streamed that first night, the second that it unlocked on Steam, and then I made a reaction video, a sort of first impressions video, and then came back and immediately started streaming the next day after putting together the beginnings of my very first guide for the game, 7 Tips for New Players. And it was great. I mean, I had a lot of viewers, a lot of people very, very excited, some of the most viewers that I'd had in a stream up to that point. A lot of people talking about the game, a lot of people who hadn't seen it before being immediately blown away by the characters and the voice acting and the script and the different design systems and everything. Just was a lot of really high energy, good positivity in those first couple of streams, and I was living for it. Like, the fact that I had the opportunity to share a game that I never thought would see the light of day again in a modern sense with my audience, who I'd been slowly cultivating through playing other things like Fire Emblem, Hollow Knight, Nier Automata, all these different games from different genres, being able to come into the very core of my love for gaming with Tactics Ogre, with all of you, was a blast. I was so happy. So when I went into making my first guide, my first 7 tips guide, I had a level of excitement and passion for it that I hadn't had on nearly any other project that I did, except for Triangle Strategy, which hadn't gotten super popular. I did a couple guides that were well received, but that was about it in terms of popularity on the channel. But I just felt like this was my chance, right? This was my opportunity to really try and push the channel forward and to show something that I love to everyone and to show you all how much I loved it. So I went into that first guide really swinging, and wow, man, did it really pay off. I published it on the 12th, the day after the release, on Patreon, because that's, all my scripted content goes on Patreon a day early for my patrons. And then on the 13th, I put it live on the channel. And I have never had a video that blew up like that, possibly ever again. I've got one other bigger video that's also a Tactics Ogre video, but that video exploded in a way that I was not prepared for. Like, I knew that it was a good video, and I was proud of the work that I did on it, but I can't even describe how crazy it was. It started to get traction immediately, which I was very happy about, and I kind of figured it would. New release, there was a lot of hype around Tactics Ogre coming out, a lot of people who were interested in it. But then it just shot through the roof, to the moon. We were streaming that day, and I got on shortly after I had published the video to start streaming, and it just didn't stop. The sub messages just did not stop. The number of people popping into the stream because they had watched the video and saw that I was live to thank me for making it, tell me how informative it was, let me know that they had subscribed, that they were so amazed that my channel is so small given the quality of the video and then given the quality of the stream as they continued to watch along and chat with people. I was completely overwhelmed. I could not believe what was happening. The fact that we were able to make any progress in game because I was like thanking people so often and like talking with so many people in chat. I'm amazed that I was able to make as much progress in the game as I was. I remember I was texting Jane. She was at work. Jane is my girlfriend who I live with. And just letting her know, like, just surpassed X amount of subscribers, just surpassed X amount of views on this video. Like, I can't go 30 seconds to a minute without another subscription message popping up on stream. It's insane. And she was freaking out as well because I'd been grinding so hard on YouTube exclusively because I'd been doing it during the pandemic. I got laid off from my job prior to the pandemic, or like right at the start of it, and so I was just doing YouTube full time. And I was really trying hard to make the channel blow up, to really be able to make it something that I could do full time and subsist on. And so suddenly this break was happening, right? And Jane and I could both see it. It was just exploding. And it just didn't stop. It just did not stop. From there, I put out my next video, 10 more tips for new players, on the 15th. Again, the 14th it went up on Patreon, 15th it went out to the public, and again, exploded. I mean, those videos are my second and third most popular videos ever now. 7 tips is sitting at 72,000 views, and 10 tips is sitting at 44,000 views. It's insane. It's absolutely wild. I just was not prepared. I was not prepared. My goal for that year had been to surpass 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year with a just pipe dream, to the moon, just Hail Mary hope that we'd break 5,000 by the end of the year. We broke 2,000 by like the end of the second day of Tor being out, and then easily broke 5,000 by the end of the year. And all of those subscriptions were coming with so many messages of support from all these awesome people. Like, just people who found my videos and appreciated them and were saying how much it helped to get them into the game because they were struggling, and then they watched these and everything made so much more sense to them. They started making progress and enjoying it and loving it and seeing just how much quality Tor has to offer if you really dig your teeth into it. And that they could not wait to see my channel continue to explode and to grow because I deserved it. And it was just like, I'm not trying to sit here and toot my own horn, but just as someone who'd been grinding on YouTube for so long and trying so hard to make it go somewhere because I love it, because it's something that I enjoy so much, to see that suddenly paying off, not only just for my own success, but because it was paying off through the potentially biggest release that I could have ever hoped for outside of the full remake of Final Fantasy Tactics that I'm sure is happening, was such a special moment for me. You know, it's not like I sat here and like did Fortnite reaction content or some stupid crap like that people do because it's popular and it'll get a lot of views and grow their channel quickly and make them go viral and everything. This is something that I truly, legitimately am passionate about and care for. And the fact that that is what was bringing success to the channel was an honor that I still can't believe that I was able to experience. It's truly amazing. Beyond just me and the various reasons that the release of Tactics Ogre Reborn was so personally impactful to me, there's something that we talked about in the stream that I did for the 1-year anniversary that I wanted to bring up in this video as well, and that's my idea that Tactics Ogre and its community still harnesses some of that old internet magic. You know, for those of you who maybe haven't been an internet nerd as long as a lot of us have been, either because you just did other things with your life and became a nerd later, or maybe you're too young, you weren't around for that era of the internet. You know, there was a time before social media was king and all conversation and content was conglomerated onto the same 4 or 5 websites, when you had just a sprawling wild frontier of fan pages and little game wikis and forums and AIM chat rooms and all these different things where people went to talk to each other about their favorite stuff, whether that was different anime, games, books, whatever. And, you know, obviously Tactics Ogre is one of those things, a very small niche strategy RPG, which had seen very limited releases in the West. You know, the PSP release was its biggest release, and that was still very small, very niche. But there was so much depth to the game, especially when you get into the overall series and its lore and its characters and everything, that there was a need and a want to have these community pages where people could gather information, put together wikis, guides, informational content, talk about strategy, talk about characters, talk about plot development. And while a lot of those types of sites and forums and aspects of old gaming communities have gone away, again with the rise of things like Discord, Twitter, Facebook, yada yada yada, I think Tactics Ogre still has some of that. It's small enough and niche enough, even though Tactics Ogre Reborn did pretty well and brought a lot of new people into the series and into the game, it's still a niche strategy RPG genre that's a remake of an old game, which is itself a remake of an even older game. So there's not going to be as much buzz and conversation around it. But what that means is a lot of the old sites and a lot of the old people who have been a part of it for decades are still there. You know, you can go on like the old Tactics Ogre wikis and things like that, which are still active and still being updated, but find information that's still relevant. Comments from people from 10, 15 years ago, discussions that can still help you to this day. And it just taps into a different era of the internet. It fosters a better sense of community, and I think that's part of why so many people enjoy talking about the game so much. Not just playing it, because like obviously the game is just a game. It's an incredible game, but it's not really, it in and of itself does not harness that energy. It's the community around it and the old nature of the game that allows that community to continue to exist in the way that it has for so very long. You know, whenever I stream Tactics Ogre, that's the most viewership that I ever get in my live streams. And it's always filled with people. You get new people, too, who've never seen the games before, start playing it, whatever. And happy to have you guys. I'm happy to see more people getting into the game. But you get a lot of people, like my age and older, who talk about their favorite games from the past, how this is a game they grew up with, how it means so much to them. We always start reminiscing about the old internet, the way things used to be. Very like, you kids don't understand the way the internet was back in my day. But like, that's what it feels like, man. And everyone opens up. You got people who are working full-time careers, have kids, have gone through all this stuff in life. But you can tell, as soon as we all gather around Tactics Ogre, everyone just opens up and almost becomes a kid again. Some of the joyful conversations that I've had with people, the number of times people have thanked me for streaming the game and talking about it and bringing awareness to it, just because it lets them feel like a kid again or reminds them so much of the good old days in the past and everything. I think that's part of it. I absolutely think that's part of it. You know, you don't see community sentiment like that around like Halo anymore, right? Because it's been so modernized and so changed. You don't see it around Mass Effect because obviously Bethesda did what it did to that series and all these different things that became so much more mainstream and have lost that small sense of internet community. Tactics Ogre has maintained that, and I think there's absolutely something very, very special to that. So it's just so cool to see. I always get that feeling whenever I'm streaming the game and chatting with you all about it, or do videos about it, and people start going in the comments and chatting in the same way. It's just a different vibe, as they say, and I really appreciate that about it. I hope that's something we're able to hold on to for a very long time, because it's a connection to our roots. For those of us, again, who are old internet heads who've been on the internet browsing gaming forums and everything for 20 plus years, it's good to have that connection back to our history. You know, it's not, you know, we're not talking like cultural history that goes back generations in terms of like societies, but in a way, it still is kind of like that. The denizen of the internet is a different breed, so it's nice to have that connection back to it. Finally, I want to talk about the fact that I do really believe that Tactics Ogre Reborn is the definitive way to play Tactics Ogre now. And I know there's a small but very vocal minority in the community that wholeheartedly disagree with me on that. You know, they'll say, Let Us Clean Together, the PSP release is the best way to play, or the One Vision mod of Let Us Clean Together is the best way to play, etc., etc., etc. That there's too many systems that they've changed in Reborn that make it a terrible game, yada, yada, yada. We just talked about this in my Don't Listen to Bad Steam Reviews video. But I don't agree with any of that, and I think that's really only arguments that will hold any sort of water for the really old heads who know the old games, who love the old games and have been playing them for 10, 15, 20 years. I think for the vast majority of new players, there's no justification for having them play anything other than Reborn. And for a lot of old players too. Like, again, I've been playing the Let Us Cling Together PSP release for years and years. And I've said over and over again how I had grievances with that version of the game, which are part of the reason that I never really finished it. Like, I never got through all the coda content and everything. Things like the incredibly clunky and painful but vital crafting system, how awkward it was to level new characters, either because you needed to get so many skill points to be able to get useful skills unlocked for them, or God forbid they be in like a cool new special class, like you get Cressida for the first time. Hope you're ready to level Necromancer from 1, or Ozma, hope you're ready to level her from 1 because no one else has their classes. Or when you get the White Knights, hope you're ready to level them from 1. It's like, it was just such a slow and painful process, especially if you were going through the world system to get any of those characters after you'd already completed a route. Oh, Lord, have mercy. It would take so long, man. And then you have new additions like the Relic Equipment System, which is so cool, the streamlining of a lot of different combat systems, obviously the fully voiced script, the reorchestrated soundtrack. Just, I don't think you can justify any other release unless you have a very specific, niche reason to prefer one of the older games. You know, if you're someone who likes to be able to overgrind and get past level caps, I don't agree with that argument that it makes Tor a bad game, that it doesn't let you do that at all. But if you prefer that, that's fine. That's fine. You're allowed to have that preference, and maybe you'll like one of the older games as a result. But Tor brings so much to the table that I cannot in any possible way say that it's better to play any of the other releases. And I think it's important to acknowledge that, because it's so clear that Matsuno and the team put so much work into making Tactics Ogre Reborn the best product that they could. And it really, really shows, man. The game is so polished. There's so much passion behind it. Discounting it for any reason that isn't like, well, there's still bugs in the game that haven't been fixed, and that's like not good. Like, yeah, I'm on board with that. There's really no justification for that. But any other argument, I just can't go for, personally. And I think it's important to acknowledge that, for me, on this 1-year anniversary of the game's release, because it's just such a big deal to me. With that said, I don't think that there's much else to say. Tactics Ogre Reborn is absolutely one of the best releases of 2022, right up there with things like Elden Ring. Absolutely, no question in my mind about that. And I'm going to be playing it for a long time to come. If you missed last night's stream, the VOD for that is up. It was a very good stream. Coffee Potato himself was hanging out the majority of the time, so if you're familiar with his work and want to see his chatting and conversations around the game and life in general, go check it out. It was a great stream. Powering through San Bronze Ruins, you'll have seen some of that going on in the background here. And there's going to be plenty more Tor content to come. Videos, streams, the works. With that said, though, thank you all so much for watching. My name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. Happy 1-year anniversary to Tactics Ogre Reborn, everyone. May there be many more Tactics Ogre releases in the future, if we're lucky. Have a good night, stay safe and healthy out there, and remember, be good to each other. Bye now.